Alright guys, welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. My name is Mickey. Today we're going to start making some bread dough I'm going to make some Italian loaves. Tomorrow is my youngest daughter's birthday, and so her and the rest of the kids are coming over for dinner, and we're going to have lasagna. That was her choice. And so I'm making some homemade bread to go along with it. So we're going to start with that today. So I've got my starter that I fed last night, so it's nice and bubbly. Okay, so it's nice and bubbly. We want to use about 1.5 cups. And I'm going to put this in here, and then I'm going to see how many grams that is. I have 1.5 cups. Yeah, okay. So that is about 380 grams. And then, so now I've used almost all of that, so I'm definitely going to go ahead and feed it before I set it up, before I put it away. So then we're going to use 1.5 cups or 365 grams of water. We'll go ahead and stir that in just a little bit. And then, because I'm making Italian bread, I'm going to go ahead and make this all with white flour. So we need about 1,000 grams of flour. Oh, and I forgot to clear that. Oh no, let's see. So that is about 6 cups of flour, or 1,000 grams. And of course, you could mix your flours if you wanted. You could use about 40%, you could use about 40% just all white flour, and the other 60% you could use whole wheat, you could use einkorn, you could use spelt, whatever you want to use. Alright, so, and then I want to add a tablespoon of olive oil, or whatever oil you want to use. And then you could use either regular sugar or honey. I'm going to use honey, and then you want to add about a tablespoon of honey. And I didn't really measure that, I just plopped it in there, so that's about a tablespoon. Alright, now I'm going to wash the honey off my fingers. So now I'm just going to use my dough whisk here, and I'm going to stir this all up. And you really just need this to be mixed together. It doesn't need to be kneaded or anything like that. It just needs to be mixed in so that all of the flour is moistened. Oops, I might not have used a big enough bowl, or else I'm just a crazy stirrer. I'm not sure. Oh my goodness, I'm throwing flour all over my counter. So it's just going to be a really shaggy looking dough. So like that. And now I'm going to get all this off of my whisk here, and I'm going to cover it, and then you want to let it sit about 45 minutes to an hour on your counter, covered up. You want to make sure that all of that flour, we want to make sure all of the water is absorbed into the flour. And then we'll come back and we'll add some salt, and we'll start the next part of the process. It is 7:45, so I'll be back between 8:30 and 8:45. And right now I'm going to go ahead and feed my starter so that I will have more when I need it. Alright, so it's been an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and move on with the next thing for our dough. And what we're going to do is, we've got 20 grams of salt here. It's about a teaspoon, or Shoot, now I can't remember. It's about a tablespoon. Oh, not 130 grams. 0. Okay, and now we want to add water until we have 50 grams. Okay, so that would give us about 3 tablespoons total volume. So I just want to stir this water and salt mixture a little bit, try and mix the salt up in it. Sometimes I get my water warm before I do this, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to pour it all in. Just going to pour it over the top. Just make sure that all your salt goes into your dough. I might need a little more water just to swish it around. All right, so now we're just going to wet our hands a little bit, and we're going to use our hands to work this salt into the dough. So I'm sort of kneading it right now just to get it all mixed in. This dough is a little drier than the sourdough that I normally make. It really helps with wet hands. All right, so we're gonna do some stretch and fold. So you wanna stretch your dough out and fold it over. Stretch it out and fold it over and just turn it a quarter turn, stretch and fold, just keep going until you have kind of a smooth ball and it's really, really hard to stretch it. What we're doing is building those gluten strands so that our bread is going to rise properly. This dough is a lot drier and stiffer than the dough that I normally use, so hopefully this works out. Okay, it's still going to be not perfectly smooth, and that's okay. We're just trying to really get that salt worked into our dough. So we don't want just a clump of salt somewhere in our dough. Somebody bites into that and that wouldn't be fun. Okay, so I've got my dough into kind of a little bit of a shaggy looking ball here. So now I'm just gonna put it there and I'm gonna cover it back up. We're gonna set it to the side and we're gonna check it again in 2 hours or so. I usually set a timer for that first 45 minutes to an hour just because I want to get my salt in there and into my dough. But as I move through the day with the rest of this, I kind of take a look at the time and just make sure I get in there within a couple hours or so and do that next step. So I'll be back when we're ready for the next step and we'll get this dough rolling. Alrighty, so it's been about 2 hours. Dough looks like this. So I'm going to wet my hands. And I'm just going to do the same thing. So I'm going to stretch and fold. I'm actually going to knead it a little bit because it's not still, let me try that again. It's still not really super smooth. So I'm going to knead it for a few minutes. I'm trying to get that dough, or get that flour all incorporated really well. And I think maybe I probably should have used a little more water, but this will be fine. Oh, what did I just knead into there? A crumb. All right, so now we've got a nice smooth ball. I'm gonna put this back in my bowl and I'm gonna cover it up and let it sit another couple of hours. So that will be about 1 o'clock or 1:30. So I'll be back in just a little while. Okay, so it's been 2 hours. And I'm gonna get out some flour on our surface. We're gonna dump our dough out and divide it into 2 pieces. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our dough, we're going to pull it and tuck it in. And what we're doing is creating a nice surface tension. And since I want these to be longer loaves, I guess I shouldn't do it like a circle. So I'm just going to keep pulling this dough and just kind of tucking it in. So we're going to do then the same thing with this one. Just going to keep tucking that like that. So we're pulling this surface tight. And I'm going to spread this one back out and make it more like this one. So we want to pull this in, up and over, and kind of tuck it in. All right, so I'm just going to set this here. And we're going to let this dough rest for an hour. And then we're going to put it on a cookie sheet with some parchment paper, and we're going to let it then sit. Let's see. So after an hour of resting, we're going to do that pull and pinch again. Just make sure we have a nice tight surface on our dough. And then I'm going to put it on some parchment paper lined cookie sheets, or a cookie sheet, I guess. And then we're going to let it sit overnight, and we'll bake this in the morning. You want to let this proof 8 to 12 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and get my parchment paper out and get this sheet ready. Okay, and I'm afraid that I might have not done this dough correctly since I didn't have enough water. So I do have more starter going if I have to redo these in the morning. If I bake these and I don't like the way they turn out, I've got more starter. I can just add a little bit of yeast in the morning so that it will go ahead and rise, and I'll bake them that way. But hopefully these turn out, so we'll see how they go. Okay, it's been an hour. So I'm just going to take these loaves and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to pull from what will be the top and tuck it in. And then I'm just going to lay these on my cookie sheet, and then we're going to cover those up. And I'm actually going to use plastic wrap when I cover them up for the final, for tonight, so that they don't dry out at all on the tops. Okay, so there's our 2 loaves. Pull pull my plastic wrap out here. And I'm going to just use this to make sure that this holds the moisture in. Alright, so we're going to let this sit overnight now, just like this. And then we will see how it looks in the morning and we'll stick it in the oven. All right, so I'm going to start our dinner. We're going to have some steak, but with our steak, we're having some honey garlic butter roasted carrots. So you're not having anything. I know you heard steak, didn't you? So I'm going to get some carrots. We need about 2 pounds. That's probably about 2 pounds. I've got a 5-pound bag here. So I'll go ahead and peel those. And I'll put the peels in a bucket for the chickens. They will love that. Before I get too much farther, I'm going to go ahead and get my oven preheating to 425. So that'll be hot when we're ready to use it. I'm just going to cut the ends off, and then we're going to cut these in diagonals about 2 to 3 inches each. All right, chickens will like that. And I guess I need a bowl to put my carrots in. Cutting them in pieces that are kind of like that. All right, so we've got our carrots all cut up. First thing we're going to do is get a cookie sheet out. I'm going to put some parchment paper on it. And give it a good spray. And we're going to melt 5 tablespoons of butter in our skillet. We're going to turn our heat down to medium because we're going to put some garlic in here and we don't want to burn it. We're going to put about 4 tablespoons of garlic in here. And we're going to cook this about 3 minutes. Okay, so we're going to move this off of the heat. We're going to turn our heat off, and now we want to add 2 tablespoons of honey. we're just going to stir this honey in until our butter and garlic and honey are all thoroughly mixed up. I should put the lid back on my honey. There we go. Oh gosh, that smells so good. Honey and garlic together just smells amazing. All right, so now we're going to pour our carrots into this pan. We're going to add just a little bit of pepper and a little bit of salt, about 1/4 teaspoon or so. And then we want to stir this around until our carrots are all covered with our sauce. Okay, so now I'm going to pour all this on my cookie sheet. And we're going to spread this out so that it's just in one layer. I might have had less than 2 pounds of carrots here, but that's okay. It's just my husband and me, so we don't need 4,000. That looks like it's going to be so good. Okay, now we're going to put them in our oven, a 425-degree oven, and we're going to cook those for about 25 minutes. And while our carrots are in the oven, we're going to get started on our steak. All right, so I've got my steaks here. And I'm going to, these are, I think, 8-ounce steaks. I'm going to cut them in half. So we're going to put a little salt and pepper on our steaks. We're going to go ahead and season both sides. Oops. Turn them over. And then we're going to do the same thing with our butter. Okay, so we're just going to let our steaks sit for a few minutes while we put our bourbon sauce together. So the steaks are going to be skillet bourbon steaks. So for this, we're going to use 1/3 cup of bourbon. A 1/4 cup low sodium soy sauce. A teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. We're going to use 1/4 cup of packed light brown sugar. We want about 1/2 teaspoon of dried basil and 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary. Put that in there. Oops, that is not 1/2 teaspoon. There we go. Then we're just going to whisk this mixture all together until we are ready to add it to our steaks. All right, so we want to use about 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. I'm just going to squirt a little bit on each one of these steaks. And we're just going to rub this mustard on the steak. Then I'm going to flip them over and do the same thing. I'm going to put a tablespoon of butter in our skillet. And then we're lay our steaks in here, and we're going to cook them about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and flip these over. And we're going to cook them another 3 minutes or so. So I moved our steaks to this plate and I poured in our sauce, and we're just going to cook this a couple minutes. It's going to cook some of that bourbon alcohol out, and then we're going to add 2/3 of a cup of half and half and let that cook for a minute or two until it gets nice and thick. So I'm stirring this half and half in. Oh my goodness, that looks so good. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my heat now, and I'm going to put my steaks back in, and I'm just going to flip them so that they get covered on both sides. And then I'm going to go ahead and just leave those in here until our carrots are done, which they've got just a few more minutes. Wipe up some of my drips here. So I'm actually going to just kind of stir these carrots around a little bit. Oh my goodness, they look so amazing. They are almost tender, but they do need that last 5 minutes or so. Alright, I'm going to take our carrots out. Ooh, hot oven. Oh my goodness, how good do those look? They smell so good. Alright, so my husband's getting his plate, and then we'll give everything a taste test. Check it out. How's the steak? Ooh, the steak looks good. Like, cook-wise. Alright, let's see.
That's a good flavor.
That bourbon sauce is delicious. Oh my. Alright. Carrots are going to be hot though. Oh, yeah, they're hot. I don't know how you put that in your mouth.
It's hot.
It's hot. Oh my. Those are really good. Okay. So that's it for tonight. Tomorrow, I am going to finish my bread. I did actually end up starting a new batch. I mean, I have my loaves that we made together earlier. I went ahead and started a new batch in case this one doesn't turn out like I like. If it doesn't, we can freeze it and use it for French toast or breadcrumbs or whatever. And then we're having lasagna for my daughter's birthday dinner. That's what she asked for. Bonus is I already have lasagnas in my freezer, so I just have to take them out and thaw them. Yay. But her favorite cake is a strawberry jello cake. So I'm going to get up in the morning, and in addition to baking our bread, I'll go ahead and we're going to make our cake and have it ready for her birthday. The cake is going to be a from scratch cake mix, or from scratch cake. I'm making my own strawberry cream cheese to go with it. The only thing I had to buy for her cake was jello because I did not have any. I didn't have any way of making any. So we're going to go eat our dinner, and we will see you guys in the morning. So it's the next morning and the bread dough that I thought wasn't gonna do very well, apparently, has risen like crazy. So I'm gonna see if I can, oh my goodness, look at that. Now I gotta figure out how to get these apart without messing them up. Let's see. These are just completely risen together. And I don't want to bake them like that. All right, so I'm going to see if I can kind of cut these apart. And move. Oh my goodness, I don't want to do that either. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to try and cut this original parchment in half so I don't have to, maybe, so I don't have to try and pull this off the paper, but it's trying to go back together. All right, let's see if I can get this cut. All right, so I'm going to put this one on this pan, and then I'll put this one back on the original pan. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to put some slashes across this, like this. All right, and I've got my oven preheating to 400, and then we're going to put these in when it's preheated, and we're going to bake them about 20 minutes and then check and see if we need another 5 minutes or so. This second batch of dough that I did, it's doing the same thing, so I might go ahead and separate it onto 2 pans. So we're gonna have a lot of bread. It's a good thing we're a bread eating family. All right, and I'll probably do the same thing here. Oh my goodness. All right. The dough that I made, the second batch of dough that I made is much more sticky. It was a wetter dough. So I'm not sure how, this dough is so sticky, I'm not sure I can get it. Might just have to cut the dough and the paper. All right, so I'm gonna move this one over here, and I'm gonna go ahead and put another sheet down on this other paper since it's overflowing the original paper. And then these two, I'm not going to bake right now. I'm going to cover them up again and just let them rise a little bit more. But these two, as soon as my oven's hot, I'll go ahead and put those in the oven. So the next thing I'm going to start on is getting the strawberries ready for my daughter's cake. So I'm going to get some cream cheese out. I'm going to let that start coming to room temperature. And then I've got some strawberries. And I'm going to put the strawberry tops in a bowl for the chickens because they absolutely love strawberries. We'll be happy to get this little treat later today. So what I'm going to do is cut some of these up I'm gonna chop them and then I'm gonna cook them down a little bit with a little bit of sugar. And then I'm gonna blend them up and add them to the softened cream cheese so that I've got some strawberry cream cheese. But my kids won't like it with strawberry chunks in it. I already know my daughter doesn't, so that's why I'm gonna go ahead and cook it down and blend it up so that it's smooth. All right, so our oven just beeped that it's ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the oven now for 20 minutes. My husband did all the dishes this morning. I was so happy when I got up. All right, so I've got this little pan here, whoa. And I'm just gonna cut my strawberries into smaller pieces. All right, that's probably enough. So I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of sugar, maybe 2 teaspoons. I'm going to put just a little bit of water in this and then I'm going to put it on the stove and start cooking it down. While the bread's in the oven and I've got the strawberries started, I'm going to go downstairs and get my lasagnas out of the freezer so they can start thawing for tonight. So I've got 4 lasagnas and they're just a little 9x9 pans. All right, so I'm going to turn these strawberries down. And I'm just going to let them cook until the strawberries are soft. I don't know if you can see that. And then I'll let them cool. And then I can blend them up when I'm ready to add them to my cream cheese. And then we'll have a nice, fairly smooth strawberry cream cheese. Alright, so those are done. Doesn't take very long. Alrighty, here we go. Let's see how these look. Okay, this one on the bottom looks perfect. This one, I think it's done. Well, maybe not. I'm going to put it back in on the top rack for about 2 more minutes and just see if we can get a better browning on the top. But this one looks beautiful. So I'm going to get started on my daughter's cake. So we need to preheat the oven to 350, which that won't take long since I just turned it off for the bread. I'm going to start with our butter, and we need 3/4 of a cup of butter, which is the equivalent of a stick and a half. So I've got a package here with 2 sticks in it. So I'm going to go ahead and get that in my mixer. Set the rest of this butter aside. And then we need our sugar. Let's see, we need 1.5 cups of sugar. Just regular granulated sugar. So there's 1. And then we're just going to cream this butter and sugar together. Alrighty. So now we're going to add 3 room temperature eggs, 1 at a time. And beat those in. We want to make sure that they're completely incorporated before we put the next one in. Alright, we're going to get our last egg in there. And I'm putting my shells in this bag where we keep our shells that we feed back to our chickens. We're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. that in. So now I'm gonna mix all my dry ingredients together. And for that, we need 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. Oops. There's our flour. And then, probably should have an apron on since I'm using flour. Then we need to add 2 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder. And 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Now I'm just going to stir this up so that all of this gets mixed in together well. Okay, so now what we're going to do is alternate. I have a cup of whole milk here, and we're going to alternate adding our flour mixture and our milk to this, starting with flour. So I'm going to add some of this flour mixture in and then mix that in. We'll add our first half cup of milk. Our last half cup of milk. And the last bit of our flour mixture. Oops. And then we're gonna just mix that all up really well. So our cake mix is, oh, it looks so good. All right, so I've got my pan here, and I'm just gonna give it a little spray of some vegetable spray. And I'm not gonna take this out of the pan to decorate it. It's a Jell-O cake, so it will stay in the pan. I just wanna make sure we can get it out easily when it's time to serve it. Give this a quick stir with the spatula and make sure there's nothing dry left at the bottom. So I'm going to pour this into my pan. Alright, so now I'm going to put it in my 350-degree oven for about 30 minutes. So the recipe I'm using actually has instructions for making 2 round layers. And since I'm just making one, I'll do 30 minutes and just check it. Oh my goodness. My mixer is a mess. All right, so here's our cake mix going into the oven, and then I'll be back in about 30 minutes to show you what it looks like. All right, so we're gonna do our next piece of our cake. So I've got a box of just regular strawberry gelatin here, and I'm going to mix it up to the point where you would add the extra cold water. We are not going to do that. We're just gonna use our boiling water. And so we need, oh my gosh, I can't see, 1 cup of boiling water. So I'm just gonna use my little Pyrex measuring. I'm gonna put a cup of water in here and put it in the microwave. I did go ahead and bake my other bread. So here's one of the loaves. The other one I cooked inside of a, oh my gosh, I can't think what it's called. Oh, a gardenware pan. Here, I'll show you. So I baked that one inside this gardenware. And so that's what gave it that little bit of a shorter, wider shape. So we have plenty of bread tonight. I may send some home with some of the kids, or I may just put some in the freezer. I'm not sure yet. So while my water is heating, I'm gonna go ahead and get my cake ready. You can use a toothpick. You can use a skewer. Oh, maybe that's what I'll use. So I would use a wooden skewer if I knew where any of mine were. All right, so I'm just gonna use this little pick that goes with a nut cracking set. And I am just going to poke some holes in my cake. And then we're going to mix up our Jell-O and pour it over. And it will run down into these holes. I'm sure you guys have seen these Jell-O cakes before, or poke cake. They've called lots of different things. But this is her absolute favorite cake, so that is what we're doing. All right. So I've got my water from the microwave. I'm gonna pour my Jell-O packet in there. And then I'm just gonna use this. I'm just gonna stir it up until that Jell-O is all dissolved. And then we're just going to take this and pour it over the top of our cake. There we go. And then I'm going to find a place in my refrigerator for this so it can cool. And now I'm going to go ahead and mix up my strawberry cream cheese. Oh, I need to clean this mixer. Oh my goodness. So we've got our strawberries and sugar that we cooked down from earlier. We put those in this bowl. And I'm going to start with them and just mix them up a little bit. All right. And I'm going to take my cream cheese that I've had sitting out here softening. Get some more of this juice coming in here. We're going to add this cream cheese to our bowl. There we go. And now I'm just going to blend this all up. Okay, so I tasted this and it needs a little bit of sweetener. So I'm gonna just add about a teaspoon and a half or so, maybe 2 teaspoons of honey. And then we'll mix that back in and we'll give it another taste. All right, so that couple teaspoons or whatever it was of honey was perfect. I blended all of that in, tasted it, it's delicious. So I'm going to stick this in the fridge. I went downstairs and got a container of Cool Whip. I got it up here. And then once my cake is completely cool from the Jell-O, then I'll go ahead and mix the Cool Whip and the cream cheese together. And then we will frost the cake with that. And then I'll slice some strawberries right before it's time for everybody to come over and kind of use those to garnish the top of the cake. And it will be delicious. All right, so I will... All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish mixing up the frosting for our cake. All right, so I've got a container of Cool Whip here. Okay. Okay, so I've got the whipped cream in with the cream cheese mixture. And now I am just going to spread this over our cake. Delicious. then I'm just going to take a few of these strawberries. Get our bucket for the chickens. And I'm going to cut these in slices. Let me see, how do I want to do that? I'm going to cut these in some slices. And I'm just going to put it around the edges of the cake. So our lasagnas are in the oven, starting to heat up. I took one of the loaves of our Italian bread and I sliced it up, and I mixed up some butter and, oh my gosh, I have greens all over me. I mixed butter with some garlic powder, melted that a little bit, mixed it all up, and spread it on my sliced bread, and it's wrapped in foil, ready to go into the oven. So we will have that with our, with our lasagna. Oh goodness. And then I've also got a Caesar salad that I'm gonna make up when it's time to eat. So here is our cake. And I'm gonna stick this back in the fridge so that it doesn't start melting. And all of our kids should be starting to show up here in the next half hour. And once everybody's here, then I'll go ahead and mix up our salad and put our bread in the oven, and we'll be ready to go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.